But really, it's when, you're like, okay, I've had enough of this. I am ready to do whatever it takes. And sometimes, unfortunately, whatever it takes means completely throwing your life up in the air. It's something that impacted my life a lot. My studio was really successful. I was going back and forth with a major publishing company in New York with like a New York literary agent. I mean, I was like shooting for my dreams, and I knew I was getting sick. My skin was getting worse. The condition is called topical steroid withdrawal, and it's horrible. I know there's a few people, or there's probably plenty of people who will be watching this who follow me because of some of the work that I did when I was going through it. But I mean, I spent like 4 years with my health going downwards, basically. Like, I'm like, what is going on? Why is it getting so much worse? And so I sold my studio, and as I was going back and forth with this publisher, my whole identity was riding on it because I was no longer a studio owner. And I didn't really have that insight at the time. Rona, I call it the ego line, and it's being able to spot what anything, like a situation in particular, means to the ego of the person. So if you're ever looking to empathize with somebody or understand, it's like, why would they do that? So many times we ask these questions, why would they do that? But it's like, well, no, why would they do that? And a lot of the time it's because it's validating in some way. But to come back to, my identity, I was no longer a studio owner. I was like trying to be a published author. This woman that I was a really good friend with had just gotten a book deal for like $400,000. My book was phenomenal. The idea was, I mean, if I do say so myself, like the diet monster, right? It's all about our relationship with food and our bodies. And I was preparing myself for like my next big break, and I just kept getting more and more sick. And I was so stressed out at the time as well. So what ended up happening is I heard back from them, and they were basically like, sorry, like it was when social media was just starting to determine modeling contracts, book contracts, actors, like how much they get paid in movies. And they got back to me and they were like, I'm sorry, like we love your concept. And they gave me some beautiful, feedback on the concept and the writing itself, but they were like, you just don't have the following that we need in order to extend a book contract to somebody. So I was like, okay, I need to go build up my following. I had already been struggling and pushing for so long that I think I had fried my adrenals. I was totally burned out. And even though I wasn't running my yoga studio anymore, I still had that pressure on me. And so they gave me a rejection. I was leveled. I had so much riding on it. And I think a part of me knew that they were going to tell me no. But I became extremely sick 3 or 4 months later. So I basically finally came across the information that the steroid cream was what was actually making me sick. I mean, I looked like I was covered in 3rd-degree burns. Like it was so frightful. I was so itchy, so uncomfortable, so insecure. I feel like that's something that a lot of people who deal with skin conditions, whether it's acne or eczema or alopecia or rosacea or whatever it is, I feel like that's something that doesn't often get talked about. It's just like how incredibly self-conscious you can be of your skin. I mean, my hands have scar tissue on them, and I still find myself, like kind of like tucking it in, and I've been pretty much healed for, a solid 1.5 years. I don't mind talking about it because that stage of my life, I was extremely isolated. I was extremely hard on myself. It was just a really, really dark time for me. And the darkness of that necessitated a big move. And I find that's where a lot of the people that come to me and want to work with me, I call it pivotal points of change. There's all these like coachy terms, but really it's when, you're like, okay, I've had enough of this. I am ready to do whatever it takes. And sometimes, unfortunately, whatever it takes means completely throwing your life up in the air. And in my case, moving to an environment where I didn't have the constant exposure to the allergens. I didn't have the constant exposure to the toxicity of the pervasive mentalities of the place where I live. And I had more sun, I had more sea, I was closer to my mom, and my whole system was able to settle. Moving here was an incredible move for me, and I think it's been an incredible move for my work. I think it's helped me understand that changing your environment can only take you so far. The internal, it's very self-help cliche, right? Like, oh, like you got to do the inner work, but you really do have to do the inner work. And I think when people come to a place like Mexico, it's like, oh, I'm gonna pop a bunch of ayahuasca and do some mushroom tripping and, sign up for some breath work and go and do a spiritual retreat. And it's like, yes, all of those things, I don't mean to make fun of them, but all of those things are great. But that's not all that you need to do. Like, it's just not. You've got to look at how you process things. And that's where, again, where most people end up coming to me is like, I have this goal, I have this project, I have this dream that I want to work on, and I just don't fucking do it. Like, I just got off a call with a woman who, she owns an extremely successful business. She's financially set. She's good for literally for the rest of her life. I mean, she's living the dream, and yet she's not happy. So what can you do to have that sense of satisfaction? So much of it is around checking our relationship to satisfaction, right? We're all chasing our potential, but how do we relate to our potential? Is it in a forceful way? Is it in a rigid, hyper-vigilant way? Or is it in a way of like, baby, I love you and I want you to do your thing and like be the best you and get out there and connect with people and spread the love? Because a lot of people's goals are not about spreading the love. All of that to say, the question initially was, about my illness, and I don't mind talking about it because I think it cracked my heart open so much. And there's a lot of people whose hearts are cracked open and they don't know where to go with that, and they don't know what to do with it. And I feel like I can see those people and I can support those people. And I don't think that I would have been able to do that unless I had gone through the devastation that came along with my health condition.